How are you?
What up, Trish?
Well, we get a lot of news. Did you see this thing on Fox News? Apparently, they found their replacement for Tucker Carlson. And it's not you. It's not me. It's Sean Hannity. He's going to go in at 8 p.m. That's according to Drudge, along with followed by, let's see, Jesse Waters at 9. And at 10 p.m., you're going to have Gutfeld. I don't know where Laura's going, but this news just coming out. I tend to think that there's probably something to it because they leaked it to Drudge. What do you think? Is it going to work? I think people have kind of left and felt a little bit disenchanted by the whole place, but curious to hear your thoughts.
So I want to first off apologize. I'm coming in literally flaming hot here from an interview. We had a very delayed interview with Ron Johnson on my show literally seconds ago, and we just popped over. And so, but it's germane to this conversation actually, because Ron Johnson was like on talking, asking about how we fix the left-wing media. And I say, huh? Like, let them die. Well, like, the only reason that they're still around, the only reason anyone even cares is because we give them attention.
Right.
And because we actually talk about what the New York Times writes. And we actually discuss like what the Washington Post has to say. It doesn't matter. The only people it matters to is Mitch McConnell, who are fossils, who like old as Methuselah, who like lived in a different era. Like podcasting and streaming and Tucker Carlson's show, which was the only show that actually broke through with Fox, with a younger demographic and an actual dynamic audience, replacing Tucker with Sean Hannity, that ain't the move. I got nothing against Sean Hannity. I know. I
said the same thing. Benny, I literally was just saying this because I like him a lot, by the way, as a person. He's a wonderful guy. He really is. And yet it's not the future, if that makes sense, but maybe there is no future in that medium, to your point.
There is no future. So here's my contention. My contention as somebody who worked in cable news, somebody who worked at news, at Newsmax. At
Newsmax, that's right. By the way, I didn't like you in the tie. I just got to say, I like this look better. The whole Newsmax, shirt and tie.
It was a command, it's a command from on high, as happens inside of a corporate media structure, right? Yeah. It's not just cable news. All corporate media is run this way, where you get these commands from on high. And that structure is wrong. And there's a reason why the most listened to man in the world is somebody who does a podcast from a garage. His name's Joe Rogan. And he's more listened to than, even on Tucker's best night, more listened to than Tucker Carlson. He's more listened to than CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC combined in their audiences any given night.
Right.
You get 12, 13, 14 million downloads per podcast. You were talking about the most listened to man in America. And that's all of the corporate media combined up against him. And what does that speak to? It speaks to an entirely different universe and ecosystem that I'm so excited Tucker is going to join now, where people actually live, where people actually are, where people like exist and can have like two-way conversation with you, streaming, live, like podcasts, like this kind of stuff where you can see the comment section, where you can like live and like live inside of a universe where the audience has a connection to you, because that's the way that the world works. People like connections. Like that is so, I'm so excited for Tucker to dive in there. And speaking with Tucker on the side here as he's making these moves, I'm really pumped about what he has planned next, man. It's gonna be monster.
Well, so speaking about the interaction with listeners and viewers, I just got a good tip from you guys. They said, hey, we need more volume on Benny. So your volume's now up, Benny. You might have to repeat some of that, but thank you guys for that. Look, you're right. Like this is, to me, it's actually incredibly rewarding because my entire career, and I've been in cable news, and by the way, network news, for a long time, right? Like that is how I started out. And I was a little kid. When I was a little kid, like we would turn on, there were only 3 networks, and you'd turn on the, CBS Evening News, NBC Evening News, and that was kind of like the big thing, right? Like be all end all. So I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool to be a network news correspondent? Not so cool, I'll be honest. Not so cool. And you want to talk about top down, and then even cable, that to me was like so liberating because suddenly now I didn't have to just speak for literally, they would time out your intro and your tag, Benny. So if you were like reporting from Hurricane Katrina, you would get 9 seconds, and God help you if you went 10. Like, God help you. It's like 9 seconds and 9 seconds only. And you'd practice. Okay, 9 seconds. So it was so stilted. It was so artificial. It was so controlled. And cable felt like great. And now I'm over here and I'm like, wow, This is pretty darn awesome. And then I get to talk with all of you guys. So it's not like this one way, me to you, but a very interactive experience. And everybody's agreeing with your thoughts right there on Rogan and how Rogan kind of set a whole new model. And I think you have for sure. I know you get a huge following. I love your show, by the way. I really do. I was telling the producer, JP, I was like, we got to get Benny on because he does such a cool show and it's so much fun. And I just enjoy it. And it's different. And I think that authenticity and that differentness really is the future. And yet, okay, so Waters, again, really nice guy. He does do some kind of sometimes unusual stuff. Gutfeld at 10 p.m. He's funny. But you know what? None of these guys can do what we're doing right now because they can't stream because of cable agreements, right?
Again, I want to, and I hate, I do not like being late, and I certainly don't like people waiting. I want to apologize to you and your audience
don't worry.
For that. The reason why, again, was Senator Johnson was 20 minutes late to my show. And that guy's based, and he's awesome, and so it was worth waiting. And for the interview, other people we would have just pushed aside. But I gotta say, it's nice to have that flexibility.
Sure.
Because we were just able to talk smack for a while with the audience. And what's wild is that the audience kept going up, 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 up. That's what's crazy, right? Is we just sort of freeformed and talked.
And you do your show live every day, right?
Yeah, we do the show live every day. I just pulled up the Durham report. Let's talk through this whole thing. I'm just gonna read to you from it, okay?
Yeah.
Because maybe no one's done that. And that'll be a service. And that's what we did. And it's who do you want to spend the weekend with, right? This is I talk to my team about this all the time. Who are you choosing? Which person in your friend group are you choosing to spend the weekend with? Is it your accountant? Is it your attorney? Is it the person who's buttoned up with the tie on, who's reading the prompter? Is that what you do with your friends when you're talking shit at the bar and you have a drink, hopefully not a Bud Light in front of you? Is that,
I don't think anybody's
is that what you
doing that
do?
now.
Do you call in the prompter and put on a suit to go have fun with your friends? No, you do not do that. It is antiquated. It's weird. What you wear is a t-shirt. You talk about guns. I got some firearms in my shot. You talk about the things that you like, and you behave like a normal human being.
Like a normal human
There's something
being.
weird about the cable news box that is like a force field, like a bizarro world force field that normal people don't like to live in, and this is so much better.
Well, when I first started this, and actually, Dave Rubin as well. I was saying, Dave, I really like your set. I like yours, Benny. I get some bookcases behind me. It's a work in progress. But when I first started, I had the busy city lights and, all that kind of stuff because that's what I was used to. And then I had all these, we call them lower thirds in the business, all the things on the bottom, always telling you what I was talking about. And it was a lot of work. We had to make all that stuff. And we'd tape it. So then it would get edited. And I was like, you know what? I think this works better. Maybe we don't have all the bells and whistles in terms of the production effort that you would get in cable, but it's more authentic, it's more natural, and we're talking in real time about things as they come in and as they cross. And so way cooler. And we've, I love it. It's fun. I know you love it and you're doing great. And I love seeing that. So let me ask you about this other thing that just came out. So Bud, I'm joking right now that everybody's trying to transition, right? Fox is trying to transition into being a more conservative network again. Bud Light is trying to transition into being, what it was, right? A guy's guy kind of drink. I get it. You want to expand that marketplace, but why are you going to totally, what, all over the ones that brought you to the dance, right? So they have this design, Benny, that they want to come out with.
I think Bud Light is done transitioning. Let's just say that.
Well, I kind of resent what they're doing. I'm going to tell you, it's like the commercials, right? It's sort of guys, you know what? You blew it. We know how you think. We have only to listen to Alyssa. I can't say her name right, so I'm not even going to try. But we've played that video. You know what she was saying. And we've seen the curtain's been peeled back. But anyway, they met with some folks down in St. Louis, which is where they used to be headquartered. They moved their headquarters to New York. Big mistake right there. Their U.S. headquarters. So they went down to St. Louis. What's that?
Are you in New York?
No, I'm outside New York. We moved out of New York some 6 years ago. Best thing I ever did. Best thing in the world.
Real.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. No, and I used to have to go into
Florida.
the city.
It's
it was
incredible.
A big commute.
I'm in Florida. It's incredible. When you see Tucker Carlson after being fired on the golf cart laughing, zipping around in the sun, that's what Florida does for you, man.
Seriously. That vitamin D.
That and having and having a good soul and a good marriage, those things.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, you know, your lifestyle, your life really matters. I used to have to commute. So I'm like, I'll tell you, during Christmas time, because the city's such a mess, I would actually be in a car. I'd be commuting 3 hours sometimes to get into the city. And I'd work in the car and all that, but I'm like, this is ridiculous. And, you know, it was hard. I never got to see my kids. I'd come home Friday night because you still have a show live, and Friday night it would take you 2 hours, 3 hours. I was miserable. So this is a much better situation in all ways. But yeah, they want to like have some camouflage print on their aluminum cans, and they want to tout the Folds of Honor military program scholarships for children and spouses of vets, disabled vets or fallen vets. It just kind of feels really disingenuous, you know, just like you're talking about cable news being disingenuous, not being real. Now it's the same thing with Bud Light. And by the way, they're not even an American company anymore. They're a multinational conglomerate. They got bought by a Brazilian beer company for $52 billion in 2008. Belgian beer company, Brazilian beer company, they all went in. They got AB InBev now. It is not what you think.
So I'm actually totally this is going to shock, I think, many of your viewers, but I'm totally in favor of these camouflage cans because the people who are drinking Bud Light want to be camouflaged anyway. Like, you don't want people to see you doing that. And so presumably that's in order to prevent anyone from being able to watch you drink Bud Light. And I think that's a really smart branding move.
And Budweiser too. The Budweiser cans.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, you like give all the people drinking your product a full ghillie suit and throw them into the jungles of Vietnam.
I'm looking at this.
That's the only way you would be allowed to be seen in public drinking a Bud. Like the Babylon Bee had Babylon Bee had a great headline on this. They're like guys at bar drinking Cosmo call their friend drinking Bud Light a sissy boy. You know, like it was as ever. It's
really bad. They're getting killed again in the market today. It's really, you know, like my background's in finance and financial reporting. So I always look at the stock prices and I'm like, wow. I mean, they're $59 a share. You know, Benny, they were up at like $67 before this all started. They're just like hemorrhaging. They've lost like $6+ billion in market cap.
I don't know what they paid Dylan Mulvaney, man, but it wasn't worth it.
Wasn't worth it.
It wasn't worth it.
Let me ask you about. Go ahead.
No, but just my final take on this is really I have nothing against Bud Light. I've drank Bud Light. Like it again, like the only thing I really had against Bud Light is that it didn't taste. It's not actually beer, right? It tastes like squirrel piss that's been siphoned through a copper kettle filled with twigs. But like, it's not actual beer. That's my only gripe with Bud Light. And what they're doing here is, if you're, you know, I know that you're a markets person. What they're doing is they're seeing that real beer is starting to eat into their markets. People like microbrewers. They like the fact that they can drink like cool, neat beers, and the craft beer industry is exploding. And so it's taking away from these garbage beers. And so they're having an identity crisis. They're freaking out, and they're thinking that they need to go get new consumers. And so that's why they're hiring freaks and weirdos and circus clowns to come in and try and rep their products. They're going through an identity crisis instead of doubling down on their actual constituency. 65+% of the drinkers of Bud Light are males between the age of 25 and 55. That's your constituency.
So you expand that. You grow that. You try and cut into Molson Coors audience. You know, for Coors Light and Miller Lite. And what did Miller Lite do? You saw this one, right? Let's see. I'll just remind everybody. You know, I didn't like it because it shows you sort of the mindset, right, of these beer companies. Apparently, they've all gone woke. And the woman who runs marketing over there, she somehow thought that, you know, we're going to celebrate Women's History Month. And this is the way to do it. Let me see if I can pull it up just to jog people's memory. I mean, my problem with this was just that it's guys,
the female,
this is who you, so, I mean,
here's a little known fact.
Hang on one
Women
second.
were among the very first to brew beer ever. From Mesopotamia to the Middle Ages to colonial America, women were the ones doing the brewing. Centuries later, how did the industry pay homage to the founding mothers of beer? They put us in bikinis. Wow. Look at this wild. It's time beer made it up.
So that goes on and on, Benny, right? Like, she's like, look at this. So here's what I'm just going to say. Like, look, I consider myself a feminist in the pure sense of the word, and that women can do whatever they want to do. And you know what? If they want to dress up in a bikini and get paid a lot of money as like some superstars, didn't they have that 2003, like Pamela Anderson and like some other really, you know, the hotties, and they do a beer commercial, fine. And it sells beer, fine. Like, I really don't have a problem with it. I just don't. But in this new woke world, I mean, I judged the Miss America pageant, by the way, last December. And I was laughing because I remember I was in it like years and years ago, and we had big sponsors like Chevy, Maybelline. I used Maybelline products up till a few weeks ago, forever, because they gave me like a zillion of them right when I was like 20 years old. Well, they would not go near something like the Miss America pageant today because they have all these woke notions. And, you know, I think women lose out because they give lots of scholarship money. I paid for Columbia University. Thank you very much. Thanks to Miss America. But so I just don't have a problem with it. And they're showing their true colors, right? Like that's how I looked at that one. Their stock's down too.
So that ad is repulsive on two levels. One, it is a blatant lie to say that there would be, without women, there would be no beer. Look, what a demonstrable, silly lie. And then two, that comedian, pseudo comedian, quote unquote, so-called comedian, Lana Glazer, who's never actually told a joke that made anyone laugh in their lives, is on her Instagram page literally naked, trying to rep for the Democrat Party. Now, I kid you not, we've gone through, and you can see this on her Instagram page. She's prancing around topless with items. I don't encourage you to see this, by the way. It's, you know, enough to turn you into Dylan Mulvaney as a man. Like she's prancing around topless, like with essentially animations over her unmentionables. Saying to go vote for the Democrat Party. She also says other things about voting for the Democrat Party that I can't even repeat on your show because I don't want you to be taken offline. So repulsive, so grotesque, so embarrassing. And why does she do it? Well, she does it in order to sexualize herself to sell a product. That's what she's doing. She's selling a product. Just the product happens to be communism, but it's still a product.
Right.
So like, what a fraud. What a virtue signaling fraud. How dare you, lady? Like, how dare you? So she's going to sit there and shame some other women who, and I'll end with this. I'm sorry, I'm like on a rant here, but like this stuff really bothers me.
I'm enjoying it.
Because at the very least, like be intellectually consistent, okay?
Sure.
Be like, yo, like you shouldn't sexualize women's bodies to sell product. Fine. If that's what you believe, then fine. But like, don't let me go over to your pages and see you. There's literally thousands of photos of that girl in a bikini selling either her HBO show, selling just her own persona, like string bikinis, like and then sometimes she's wearing literally nothing. She's literally topless, prancing around trying to sell the Democrat Party. Those videos exist. So these people are fraudulent. They are virtue signalers, and they are trying to shame someone else from a different era who made marketing decisions that made sense in that era and maybe make sense today. I don't know.
Well, I still think, you know, cute girls sell beer, or at least if that's your, you know, demo, if you want a bunch of 25-year-old guys drinking your beer, don't they have like the silver bullet girls or like Bud Light? I mean, you know, it's kind of, it's just, so what? Like, do we not have bigger things to focus on?
How do you not get 25-year-old guys to drink your beer? Hire dumpy non-comedians who sit there and scold you for liking that kind of stuff. Like, that's what you do. You hire people like Lana Glazer.
Yeah. But hey, turning to like a more serious thing, because we heard some rhetoric out of Joe Biden. And I want to get your take on this because I'm really actually kind of bothered by this. To have a president of the United States say this at a commencement ceremony at Howard University. This is bad stuff. You know what I'm talking about, but I want the listeners right now and the viewers to hear it and get your reaction on the other side.
We know that American history has not always been a fairy tale. From the start, it's been a constant push and pull for more than 240 years between the best of us, the American ideal that we're all created equal, and the worst of us, the harsh reality that racism has long torn us apart. It's a battle that's never really over. But on the best days, enough of us have the guts and the hearts to stand up for the best in us. To choose love over hate, unity over disunion, progress over retreat. To stand up against the poison of white supremacy, as I did my inaugural address, to single out as the most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
Yeah, white supremacy, that's the biggest threat to our homeland right now. Benny, your reaction?
Joe Biden's white supremacy?
Mm.
Like, that's my question. Is like, Joe Biden's been around, like Joe Biden was having to use like a pocket catheter in the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Like, he's so old. He's been around like since he's a fossil. He's a literal political fossil in America that has sided with the KKK Grand Wizard, the last one in the Senate that we know of. His name was Robert Byrd. He eulogized Robert Byrd. He sided with Strom Thurmond, was so proud of his relationship with Strom Thurmond. I'm not trying to judge people from the grave, but this is literally living history. Joe Biden's the guy who was against integrating the schools in Delaware. Joe Biden's the guy who said that if you have a Indian accent, you would be welcome at every Dunkin' Donuts in Delaware. Joe Biden's the man who like talks about going after corn pop for the amount of pomade he has in his hair. That's Joe Biden. Like Joe Biden wanted to kill a guy because he had a black guy because he had too much pomade in his hair. That's the fact. And he also went through and wrote the 94 crime bill. And I will say finally that Joe Biden is also a man who put hundreds of thousands of young black men in jail for having a scintilla amount of crack cocaine in their pockets. Mandatory sentencing. Yet you have like a Mount Everest style pile of cocaine crack rocks in Hunter Biden's boudoir, yet nothing happens to him. So tell me, who's the real racist? Who's the real white supremacist? Because what it sounds like to me is that there's supremacy for his white son, his sex trafficking, drug addicted, serial woman abuser son, based on the laws that his father wrote. Yeah. So like young black men suffer under Joe Biden's laws, and his white son gets off scot-free.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. And you look at even just the fact that you had 51 ex-spies out there. Allegedly, this whole thing was orchestrated by our current Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who claims, oh, I'm not political. He was working on the Biden campaign at the time, apparently called up his friend Mike Morrell, former CIA deputy director, says, hey, Mike, let's get this together. Mike pulls it together. You got guys like John Brennan signing this. Brennan, who was like, oh, the dossier is absolutely positively true. I'm sorry, but like it really causes us to question everything they tell us now. You read that Mueller report. You read the Mueller report part 1. That'll give you a pause. But you read the Durham report, all 306 pages. I have not finished it. Full disclosure, I will this weekend. But 306 pages there that basically say, yeah, you know what? They completely ignored any of the warning signs that I would do. Like I would do. You as well. Like you're not going to go on the air with something that's so blatantly false. You're going to call some people and check it out. And if you think this thing that they talked about happened in this hotel room in Moscow, wouldn't you maybe like check the hotel records? You're the FBI, for goodness sakes. This is what's so mind blowing.
Yeah. You want to look at real white supremacy? Go check out all the mugshots of all the 51 spies who lied. These are the people that push diversity and equity and inclusion on all of us, and every single one of them is some old, dusty, white cretin of the swamp. And so, yeah, I mean, again, fraudulence. Listen, this is the same as Miller Lite. It's the same thing. It's simply virtue signaling for power. It's people who have no virtue, people that have no truth in their lives except power, and they are trying to use their platforms in order to attain it and maintain it. It's wild. This is the same FBI that also went after Martin Luther King Jr. and told him to kill himself. Has anybody ever asked Joe Biden about that? Like how the FBI, during Joe Biden's era overseeing the FBI, was an institutional tool that spied on Martin Luther King Jr. and wrote him suicide notes encouraging him to kill himself. That's what the FBI did. There's an entire part of the FBI's website that goes through the MLK files. This is like proven fact. So during the FBI era of the 1950s through the 1970s, the FBI was used to still support and maintain institutional power. It's just that power was more right-wing as we would understand it today. They went after Marxists, they went after feminists, they went after the communists, they went after the civil rights movement. That's what the FBI was used for then. It's just now that the Marxists have taken control, they realize that power is really, really special. And so now the Marxist feminists and the communists have integrated themselves into the FBI, and they are just using that same tool to project institutional and protect institutional power.
In other words, all for their own benefit, their own wealth, their own power.
Same tactics. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I mean, it's the same thing. I keep talking about ESG, and I don't know how much you get into the ESG nonsense, but BlackRock, which is basically, the world's largest asset manager controlled by Larry Fink, who had this brilliant idea. Okay, well, we'll set the parameters with environmental social governance. So you have to have this much diversity on your board, in your workforce. You got to have this kind of green footprint. So, forget the oil companies. Anyway, so the whole idea is you got to be ESG compliant in order to be graced with investment from BlackRock. Well, you'd say, well, who the heck cares about BlackRock? Well, BlackRock actually controls more than half the size of US GDP. That's how much money they have under management. So if you're a corporation, you kind of can't ignore this. You may not like it, but it's like, gosh, if you don't have the right ESG score, nobody from all these big pension funds, the institutional money, is not going to be able to invest in your company, and your stock price will suffer. And so this kind of woke nonsense is permeating now Wall Street. I look at this and say, okay, we got it on the culture front, we got it on the political front, now we get it on the money front. What happens to our country if they're successful?
Well, I mean, this has always been about centralized oligarchical control. Taxation without representation is something that we fought for way back in the day. And this is precisely what we have now. We have a super state, a superstructure, financial, whether you're talking about the speculation that happens on Wall Street as it pertains to the asset manager class, the hedge fund class. And by the way, why is BlackRock managing all the money for Ukraine? Weird. BlackRock just realized that what they could do is they could become like the modern day Jeffrey Epstein. They could become like the bankers for the deep state. And that is precisely what they do. And then they project these values upon those investments. And then they utilize and weaponize the United States government from the private sector. That is precisely what BlackRock does. It's deeply malicious, it's deeply evil. I think that BlackRock holding a huge portion of Fox News stock is why Tucker Carlson was fired, because Tucker Carlson was going after BlackRock. That is interesting. So now you can actually fire your most profitable hosts because they criticize you. That's what that's just my
this was interesting. I've actually, I've looked at this. So they hold
BlackRock owns like a half of Fox. They
hold like 4 or 5%. I was looking this up the other day. They hold like 4 or 5% of everything. So we have to but it does, holding 4 or 5% of something does give you
sure it's not higher
the ability.
Than that? You sure it's not higher than
that? I saw some articles that, I get friends with connections. They looked it up on the terminal, the Bloomberg terminal, Bloomberg, where I used to work.
I don't have the numbers.
There was one, Forbes had reported that maybe they were making a bigger investment. So I ran that down, and I still saw just like 4 or 5%. But nonetheless, they still, I think, even with that 4 or 5%, still have the ability to pick up the phone and say, hey, Rupert, this guy's out of control. And don't forget, Benny, 5 weeks earlier, you had Chuck Schumer on the floor of the Senate saying, we need to regulate Fox News and specifically Tucker Carlson. And then what happened on Sunday? He got let go on Monday. Apparently the decision was made on Friday. AOC again said the exact same thing in an interview with Jen Psaki on MSNBC. It aired Sunday. I bet you anything it was taped on Friday. She said, we need to regulate Fox News and Tucker Carlson. So that was some kind of rhetoric that was picking up on Capitol Hill. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of lobbyists were involved in that, and if BlackRock was involved. I mean, that to me suggests that there was an effort by the some people within the federal government that wanted to see him muzzled. And Fox News kind of maybe had, that to me makes the most sense. If you had to hypothesize, what do you think? BlackRock, I know you think that had something to do with it, but do you think that Chuck Schumer, AOC, the Biden administration not liking what they were talking about had anything to do with Tucker going?
No, of course not. Like they clearly don't care what those people say. Like those people are clowns, and everyone's aware of that. What they care about is that Tucker Carlson was criticizing the federal government's engagement in Ukraine. That the people who were managing, this is a very simple step-by-step process. So simple, in fact, that a guy with very room temperature IQ like me, like a solid 75, can follow the breadcrumbs here. Okay, so here we go. BlackRock is the banker of the U.S. federal government. They manage the U.S. federal government assets and deep state assets. BlackRock is hired to manage all of the billions we're sending to Ukraine. That's great business, because that is just pure money laundering straight from the U.S. Treasury. Now, Tucker Carlson is criticizing not only Ukraine and the money laundering operation there from our U.S. government, but also criticizing BlackRock. And so what you're going to eventually get there is you're going to get the singularity where Tucker's going to make the connection, but this is just simply the elites inside of America money laundering to themselves through their own agency, through their own investment firm, BlackRock. And so Tucker was, I think, like right directly over the target, and BlackRock, who has so I don't know exactly I don't know what the percentages are, but they have a significant investment in Fox News. Okay, let's just call it this. Significant, even 5% is a huge investment in a company. That is enough to get a board seat. That is enough to like swing people, right? So 5% investment in the company, and maybe more if they fire this guy. That's enough to actually sway the news coverage. And so that's what I think actually happened.
So what I'm looking for right now, as I'm looking off camera, you can keep talking, but there was a clip of Bongino going after BlackRock pretty hard. And it happened a couple of weeks earlier. So now I'm thinking out loud about your theory, and I'm seeing if I can pull this up here, because that was, you think about some of this, and you're going after the bigwigs, you're going after the powerful, and it's not really allowed. I don't know as I can find it, but anyway, Dan Bongino also did.
It's great to have my own show. It's great to have my own show. Look, you're looking at the CEO. I don't take money, right? Like I don't have investors. It's the best part of being free. It's the best part of being liberated. Bring this entire conversation back to what we talked about 30 minutes ago. Like, I don't have investors. You're looking at the CEO here, right? I don't need them. I don't need these. I got no strings to hold me down. Like, it's great to be able to have the freedom to talk about these things. And it's also great to be on your show, Trish.
Oh, well, hey, Benny, we thank you for coming on.
I can drop bombs on your show.
I'm a big fan.
I just go nuts here.
No, I'm a big fan of your team. Certainly Alex over there, great guy. One of the first to reach out to me when my whole ordeal was like, I was probably as shocked as Tucker, because you think that you have the backing, right? In my case, they used to make me send my scripts in every night. Oh, so painful. So I sent the script in. I mean, it was all A-OK, like went all the way up the food chain. So those kinds of things. I don't know if Tucker had to send his scripts. Maybe he had a different deal, but you're right that it's very tightly wound and very organized in that they only are going to allow so much. But I also think management was just kind of out of, the management was trying to manage, but middle manage in a way, but not manage enough to really keep the place on course. It's all just blowing up in real time. And we are lucky that we have you on your YouTube. So they go to @Benny Show, right? To find you. I know you're on Twitter as well, and some other good platforms. Facebook.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
@Benny Johnson, at Benny. We're trying to we would like to move our handles to @Benny. That would be
that'd be great.
Based, but @Benny Johnson is all of our channels. We got 7.5 million followers across our platforms, and that is growing quite rapidly. And so help us get to 10 million, and help us break the corporate media ecosystem. And this is how we do it. We actually promote real news. Trish just touched on a beautiful thing there. Do you know that every single word that you hear on your favorite shows, if they are broadcast on terrestrial TV, every single word has been gone through by a lawyer, has been gone through by presumably a leftist for approval, because these media companies are run out of New York, Manhattan, LA. Yeah. People need to understand that they've been lied to, and that these people are such under tight wound control, as you just said, that you should really tune in and support people that are unrestrained and that have the freedom to really talk about the real issues here, because nobody is trying to hold us down, and it's a wonderful and liberating thing. Shout out to you.
And you do a great show, and it's a heck of a lot of fun. And so we thank you for your time today. I'm going to talk with some viewers just a little bit more. They're looking out for me. Somebody apparently in these messages they did not like, and somebody got control over it. So thank you for all of you. You got a lot of fans here tuning in. Benny, we will definitely subscribe to your show. We appreciate your time. I hope you come back soon, and keep up all the effort. Good stuff.
Stay free.
All right. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. Benny Johnson at The Benny Show, everyone. Just great. Just a wonderful program. There's a few shows I really, really like here on YouTube. He is one of them. So do check him out.